Hello everyone and welcome to the To Have and To Roll podcast. My name is Oliver. On this show, Robin and myself are joined by Janaya. Janaya is a LARP player and she currently plays the Empire LARP system here in the UK. She started LARPing around the same time as us. Her character is currently in the nation of Dawn, and this episode we kind of just had a laugh. We talk mainly about our experiences in our first year at Empire and the goings-on in the Nation of Dawn and Empire in general, what it's like being a new player in the Empire LARP system. We do touch briefly on in-character publications, which we were supposed to talk more about, but we had a fantastic time. If you are watching this on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up. If you are new here, consider subscribing. It does go a long way to help us out. You are under no obligation to do so, of course. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform, consider leaving us a nice review for similar reasons. And with that all out of the way, let's get into our conversation with Janaya. We've got our friend Janaya here with us. We had to get someone from Dawn on because we've had too many people from all over the Empire. We need to get Dawn people.
We need
on.
more Dawn.
Yeah. E1 is close. E1 is close. Are you ready, Janaya?
I'm in it. I'm down. And I can't be more ready. I'm halfway through a Desperado already.
Are you actually like properly ready for it, or because yeah. God.
What does that feel like?
Oh, you mean for E1? Oh my God, no, absolutely not. I thought you meant
we know.
I thought you meant like, you ready for this podcast?
Totally. we know you're ready for the podcast.
No, I'm so ready for E1. God, that's a big question. So this is like you guys, this is obviously like my first long dark. Do you experience that same thing where I remember at the end of E4 last year, being like, oh, what's the long dark gonna be like? This is so crazy. I've never experienced this. Everybody, without fail, their first answer, well, you didn't have to do it through COVID. We had the longest dark.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, your suffering doesn't take away from my suffering. So
yeah, it's funny
like,
when
weird competition.
Before we started recording, we were literally talking about like generational gaps because we were discussing Prime. Some of us don't know what Prime is, and we talk about generational gaps. That kind of feels a little bit maybe like Empire players now. It's like, oh, and
I remember the longest dark.
I remember the longest.
You weren't there.
Yeah. Well, it's 10 years since the first E1 as well, so there's a lot of it going on.
Did you see those pictures they posted of like the original event? It's just like a hut, and I'm just like, oh, sweet baby, how you have grown.
I don't know. Like looking at those pictures, I know people. Again, it's one of those things. You talk to the players, the E1 year one players, and they're like, oh yeah, I was there E1 year one, and they do say it was like cold and wet, but like looking at those pictures, and I'm like.
Yeah, I can see it.
I'm not sure if I would have come back if I'd gone to that.
You got to remember, like a lot of those people who went to E1 were already roped into Profound Decisions from Odyssey. Mm-hmm. So they were like diehard, you know, they knew the crew and they knew Matt P, and they would have been like, cool, you created Odyssey. I love Odyssey. New game. Let's give it a go. So I think, those people who were, I mean, I don't know. There's probably people who also went to Empire first ever and just left afterwards and were like, no.
But I hear there was
most of them seemed diehard.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of only joking when I was like, I wouldn't have come back, but I do hear that some people did, like they had a big first event and then a lot of people didn't show up because it was so like cold and bitter and
because there's like snow on the ground and all the photographs and everything, isn't there? It's like, wow,
that looks really cool. Also, once I've paid like £75, I'm in. I don't care. There could be an earthquake where we're going. Like once you've taken nearly £100 from me, I'm in. Like I don't care what we're doing.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'll bring an extra cloak.
I didn't even have a cloak at E1 last year. Do you remember the wind at E1? last year. Oh my God. I thought I was going to die. I was sleeping in a tiny little, I learned very quickly what was working and what wasn't working for me with Empire. Loved every bit of the game, all of the role play, but what I really, really got wrong was that E1, I literally just slept OC and in a just crappy little pop-up tent that I'd had forever, because I was just like, I'm lazy, I don't want to put up a proper tent or buy a new one. This pop-up one, you literally just flip it and it's done, and then you pop it, pin it down, and I was like, I've got a spare duvet, I'll put that on the ground under with a yoga mat underneath, I'll be totally fine. And I thought I was going to die in the middle of the night. Like I literally was like, this is what it feels like to actually freeze to death. I slept in like all of my clothes. So that first E1, I didn't take off my costume the whole weekend.
That's easy.
I just added on new layers on top to sleep in. And then I would just wake up in the morning and take them off and be like, oh cool, I'm Saren again now. But it was wet and cold and gross. It was terrible.
I mean, the thing is, I guess the good thing with that E1, it was really cold like at night, but it wasn't like rainy and muddy, so you could totally get away with, because I think I did, because you weren't sweating either really much. You could get away with just putting your kit on, like you're saying, just sleeping in your kit because it was so cold.
Absolutely what I did. And the other, obviously, like the other drawback of being sleeping OC is that then I have to wake up and then walk to camp. So I was like, this just kills two birds with one stone, surely.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a bit from the other point of view. I like camping in character, because I feel like I would never want to leave like the anvil bit if it's cold and be like, I have to walk back this long cold walk back to the.
I can't even explain to you how miserable those walks were in the blaring wind, and I had no cloak. I just literally had an IKEA throw pinned with a little cloak pin that I'd found on Traders Row. That was one of the first things I did. I was like, cool, I've got my green throw from IKEA. It cost me a tenner. Threadbare, just absolutely not prepared at all. And
you thing is, you can, the good thing about it is you can tuck into the calories. Honestly, we did not bring enough food with us at E1 because you're
my gosh,
just sitting in the tent.
Every event we've not brought enough food. Every single event, like we've come back and be like, okay, we need more food next time.
There's always more stuff I want, but it never stops me from buying the hot food either. It doesn't matter how much I bring, I still wake up like it gets to 5 p.m. and you've been walking around all day and you're just like, do you know what, I just really want a bratwurst now. Something hot.
I totally get
it's
that.
Just like, apart from setting up my whole campfire situation, just gonna go spend 20 quid on a hot dog. Like maybe not 20 quid.
Almost though, like
not far off.
Well, no, if you think about it, because when you walk there, you walk past a lot of different things. So I think in the journey there and back, you will end up spending that, whether you want to or not.
You can include the stuff that you end up buying on the way to the hot dog as the price of the hot dog. It's not the hot dog's fault that you are a magpie.
Yeah. But I totally get that, because it feels like because I do the same, because it is expensive, especially if you eat a few times from the food vans. But it almost feels like a little treat. It's like a little slice of like modern living, because you're just like,
it's nice as well, like, because I think in the day, or that period where the day is sort of turning into the evening, and you think, I'm gonna get some hot food. Let's get some hot food. And because that area is OC, it kind of is one of the first like breaks that I tend to get in the day.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
There's often like things that I've saved up in my head, or I'll be like, hey, remember during battle earlier when this happened? Quick OC discussion. So it's kind of twofold for me. I really, really enjoy having just that break from the pressure. And then I always feel like I can go back into the IC area refreshed, like, because Janaya's okay now. I've satiated myself. So I can kind of be a bit more human, or be a bit more changeling.
Yeah, no, like that's a really good. It's a good point. I didn't actually think about that, but that is a good kind of point, just like to check in like with yourself and just be like, okay, especially like you're saying, if you're a camping OC, like having that sort of like, okay, I'm now able to escape, have a few moments, eat some food, check in, and then go back to your being in character.
Yeah. And I did do that more at E1 last year because I had to go back to my tent every time I needed to change, or so like, you know, when I changed from my battle clothes to kind of my just walking around Anvil clothes. And I ended up, I actually think it was much worse immersion wise, because it's kind of a balance. Like on some level, I think, it was my first event. I was probably really overwhelmed. And I took a lot of those moments to be like, cool, I'm going to go back to my car, because I just parked my car right next to the tent. I should have just slept in the car. It would have been more comfortable and warm. But I was like, I'll just, you know, brave it. But I would end up spending like an hour in my car doing my makeup and just kind of like checking my phone and just, I told myself I was kind of recuperating, you know, spending some OC time, you know, like I said, checking in with myself. But realistically, now I know that like that's an hour of game time that I lost. So it's a fine balance. I don't think I needed that much time to recuperate. I definitely wouldn't go back to OC camping without being forced.
Yeah,
no,
you can overdo it as well, right? You can overdo the kind of taking a rest, because I've done it before. I'm like, I need to decompress, and then I go in and then I'm like, oh crap, I've just missed like 2 hours of gameplay because I'm just like sitting on my bed because I'm knackered. So
I mean, those things you can't help. You have to rest when you need to rest. You have to just like listen to you. But it always feels like those times where you're like, I'm just gonna lay down for an hour. It'll be like someone will come back and be like, oh, did you see so and so's test of metal? It was amazing. And you're like, wait, what? Like, what just happened?
That's the thing. Like, I always try to take like every maybe like every few hours or so, I'll nip back into the tent and just take a couple of OC moments. It's usually just to stick my phone on, make sure, because obviously we've got the dog either in a kennels or with family. So I do a quick check-in, you know, everyone okay, all good, put the phone off, and then come back out. But I get serious FOMO. I could not camp OC. Oh my gosh.
Don't do it. It's not worth it. I think it really works for some people. I think they really like that divide and being able to kind of really leave Anvil very solidly and know that they're coming back to Anvil the next morning. But I personally, it's not even so much the morning now. What I now cannot live without is the like 1-2 a.m. when you're trying to fall asleep and then you suddenly hear like some bard blaring out something, or what's the bar in Dawn? I keep forgetting the name of it. Wise Guys.
Wise Guys, yeah.
Like the last 2 events, I've been sort of like tentatively kind of, I might go to bed at 1. I get into the tent. I never do. I never, ever do. I don't go to bed at Anvil until the sun comes up, and then I spend all day hungover until I start drinking again. It's really healthy. But like, I'll be in, I remember just like, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, we should lay down. Okay, I'll get into bed. And all of a sudden you just hear sweeping across Dawn the Varushkin voices and what are their names? Yes. Oh my god. And then they like light up Wise Guys. I mean, they brought a whole crowd with them, and I'm just like, I'm up and that. Like, well, we're going drinking again. Let's go.
Yeah.
And like that's exactly what happened to us. Like we like headed back to the tent before, and I was so tired. I think we literally got to the tent, and all we heard was "Oopah!" And we're like, okay, we're good.
I just like I can't miss anything. No, I just cannot, like, I can't stand to think that something could happen.
Yeah, it's that
would be epic.
Exactly, you're there. You may as well make the most of it while you're there, right? Because you're only there really for like 2 nights, if you like in character.
Yeah, exactly.
With those things going on, I think it's going to be very different E1 this year, unless the weather is very, very bad. But I don't know how you found it, Janaya, but we kind of ended up going because we didn't know anyone, you see. So obviously you're making, you're role playing, making friends. Is our first ever time on that Friday night. But then it's obviously it's cold, and there's like obviously early on it's like meetings, and you're like, we'll go see, what these people are doing. And then when you're not interacting with people, and you've not really got into any game yet, we kind of start, and we were tired, and we're like, oh yeah, maybe we'll go back to bed. And we think we did go to bed at like midnight. And we missed a lot.
Yeah, because we had a lot of fun, like, because we did that thing where we were like, oh, let's go have a wander around. And we just wandered around. And then we went to one of the meetings, and then we were really cold. It was about midnight. And like Oliver said, we were like, we'll head back to the tent. And I think we went to like lay down in the bed, and
then
then
next thing you know,
it
it's
was
morning.
6 a.m.
I mean, like, I think it balances out for everybody. You know, you can't see everything. You can't do everything at Anvil. It's just not possible. And as much as I love staying up till the bitter end and being the last person to be kicked out of a party tent, there's probably people who love being there straight away at time in and have lots of game there first thing in the morning. Whereas I'm hungover, scrambling to find a bacon sandwich, like, you know, just waiting for 12 o'clock to hit so I can start drinking again without anybody judging me. Like,
I love seeing you in the morning. You're such a different person. Like, you look so vulnerable. The amount of times that you like almost like crawled over to us in the morning with like your cup, and I'm just like, oh,
please have some coffee. I think the first time I met you guys was when I came. I was like, somebody told me you have coffee, and you hadn't properly like planned to really offer out loads of coffee.
No.
And you came. I think I came over, and it was so cold and windy, and I just hadn't come to Empire thinking at all about coffee. Like, my brain just didn't think about, oh, what do I actually need in the morning to function and be human. None of that processed at all. And then when I was like, oh my god, there's coffee, I was just like, oh, I need it. And I think I had to wait like an hour for you to brew it.
Oh my god.
So that was E2.
Yeah.
That's when that was, because E1 is when we woke up really early, and I put all these things in the Dawn Facebook group being like, does anyone serve coffee? Where do I get coffee? Because it's 7 and I need it.
Yeah.
And no one answered, obviously, because everyone's in their tents. And
everyone's phones are dead. But my phone is dead by Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about it that's even if you turn it off and you turn it back on. It's because
of the signal. Like, the signal, your phone constantly searching for signal just drains your battery.
Yeah. But we did exactly the same thing at E1 as well. We were like, we woke up, and that's the thing, because we're not like camping people either. So we you know, and you're not used to it. So even though you are tired, you get up, you know, it's the sun is out, and you're like, I'm not in my normal environment. I'm not in my own bed. I'll get up, you know, and you're stirring, you know, and obviously there's 2 of us in the tent, so we're like chatting away, and then we're like, oh yeah, well, we still don't really know many people either on like that Saturday morning, and it's like, oh, okay, so you get out, you say good morning to a couple of people, and then you're like, I'm dying for coffee, and then they're like, oh, there's coffee if you go to like Moorish, and you're like, great, but that doesn't open until like what, like 8 or 9.
The other problem with Moorish is, like, in the morning, there's that, if you just want coffee, you're gonna have to wait in a massive queue just for coffee. There is one all the way at the top of the traders, but I'm like, that's a trek. Like, I'm not doing that first thing in the morning.
Just in case they don't have any or not open as well, you know.
Well, like, the issue is, I don't just want one. I want one coffee while I'm getting up and getting ready, and I'm going to want another one in like half an hour. So do I get 2 and figure out a way to keep them both warm?
Yes.
Or do I get one and then risk that drop later?
Absolutely. Just chug them both one after the other, and then just ride the caffeine high. That's what...
I love how you use the term chug for coffee as well.
Everything's chuggable if you're brave enough.
So, you know, most people use espresso, but you could chug loads of coffee. Yeah, that's one thing you could do. But yeah, that's the reason we bought our next purchase after E1 was the fire and the coffee stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna make coffee because I'm up in the morning anyway. I don't have anything else to do. It'll be cool to like make it like old school, you know, like proper cowboy coffee, because we're like, you know, in tents on a field
being cowboys. Exactly.
So I thought I'd make that. And I'm like, oh, if I'm getting a big coffee mug, I'll just be like, oh yeah, if anyone else wants coffee, come and grab some coffee and we can make friends, because Robin and I are always just desperate for friends. I don't think we had any friends growing up, did we? So we're always like,
we were clearly lonely children, right?
Yeah. I mean,
please be our friends.
Well, it's hard though, isn't it? Like even the first couple events, I guess, like, everyone's really friendly, but it's just so weird, like, knowing how to navigate that. Like, what do you talk about OC? Because there just isn't enough time for me to properly get to know you, and it kind of has no bearing on like how I feel about your character either. So it just I find myself like entering into like the kind of small talk where you're both kind of just pretending that you've already known each other for a while. You just talking. There's no, everybody just kind of ignores the part where it's like, hi, what's your name? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Like, none of that happens. It's just like, oh, weather's crazy, isn't it? Like, and you just sort of, I just talk about how hungover I am, basically.
Yeah, it's usually the best way. But that's why the coffee things work, because you just like, oh yeah, they're just like, coffee, please. And then the small talk starts to appear, you know. And people, that's the thing, and it's handy because then you had. You know, we end up having people that have been playing and like know the game really well, and obviously they would then.
That's how we've learned the most stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, they would obviously
from serving coffee.
Yeah, they would. Well, they would just obviously they hang out and then they talk amongst themselves and then going, oh yeah, this today. Oh yeah, well we're doing this with the Drush today, or that you know, basically it's going to be an absolute, you know, it's going to be bad today because this is happening and there's going to be these tormented souls, and you're just like, as a new player, you're like. Mm-hmm.
Oh, tell us more.
Has anybody read The Winds? Like,
so yeah, we I mean, did you? How much reading of the wiki did you do before your first event, Janaya?
A fair bit. I mean,
all right, okay.
Okay, I say a fair bit. I read in depth the things I absolutely needed to know. So I wanted to know as much as I could about Dawn and you know, what it means to be Dawnish, and I read about the hearth magic, and I read about changelings, I read about summer magic because that's what I had at the time. But just all that ritual stuff just totally went over my head like I think until I was in the game, none of that made any sense to me. It was like reading gibberish. None of the storyline stuff made sense to me. You know, all the winds and everything. I was like, I don't understand what any of this means. What is Drush? At that point, I'd never even played D&D. So it was really, really hard for me to understand anything.
Yeah. So had you done, was that your so was it your first LARP as well that you won?
Yeah.
You're hardcore like us, yeah.
Yeah, just went in absolutely balls to the wall. Just try it.
Have you done any like role playing or like improv or anything like that beforehand, or?
Yeah, I'd done improv. That sounds so wanky to say. I've done improv.
Went to drama school, you know.
Literally, no, I didn't. No, but I did. I mean, I did drama in school and at A level. So I was like, oh, it's just acting, but with drinking, and we're outside. I can do that.
That's a new description of LARP. It's like acting, but with drinking and outside.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, I think that was kind of enough to make me think, oh yeah, I can get through this. I hadn't really put much thought. That's total understatement. At E1, I had probably put about 11% thought into what it really meant to role play and be a character. And it wasn't really until I was playing the game and, you know, finding those like little moments, usually when I was like, you know, riding a good kind of buzz, sort of in the early evening, where I kind of realized like who the character was and had those little like moments in my head where I'd think, oh, okay, this is what I need to be all the time. And then it wasn't until, you know, before E2, E3, where I started to really think, how do I get into that mode without drinking? I'm painting myself to be a real alcoholic here, but like
so I just kept drinking.
So, and I'm thinking to myself, like, even so I started thinking of things, even like playlists I could put together for the drive down there, just stuff that I knew would really help me get into that mindset. And like, it's not as if Saren's that far from me. I like to think that she's basically just like the Chaos Goblin version of me, which I think is pretty typical for everybody's first LARP character. You just
I think so. I mean, it works for the game. I think.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And you can be. You don't. I think I was so nervous before going in, thinking people are going to ask me my life story. You know, people are going to quiz me on all of the details of my character, and they don't. You just show up and you be. Yeah. So I could easily just be Janaya if I wanted to, but it's much more fun to be somebody else, and then I have an excuse for all of the terrible choices I make, and you know, being just being really, really devious.
I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have, because the game isn't like that, because it can be like that in D&D. And I mean, it might help you out if you've done a bit of D&D and you kind of know what role-playing is, but it really isn't like D&D role-playing, you know, because D&D role-playing, you probably are going to be like sat around a table and it's like, oh yeah, hello, you meet in a tavern. And sometimes you are going to have tables where they're like, where are you from? Who, you know, where did you get that scar? Where did you, and it's that. But at Empire, no one cares. People only care on your opinion on what's happening in the Empire.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And most of the time I've heard people's backstories, it's been just volunteered. Like, I didn't ask anybody. I didn't ask them about it. They just be like, oh, well, I'm doing this quest because, you know, I carry the sword of my father and all of that.
Are they from Wintermark?
Well, I know, I'm obviously talking about Wintermark there. Obviously.
There's a lot of father swords knocking around.
And, you know, Wulfric's son.
Wulfric, yeah.
And the three brothers.
And the three brothers, of course. But yeah, like nobody asks you those things, and really you find that it's the really like boisterous people who volunteer their life story who you actually find that stuff out about. Everybody else is just kind of like, just sort of take them as they come.
Yeah, I mean it's but even in D&D, like, but like most of the time you don't care, like you care about your own backstory, but really people don't care about your backstory, right? Because it's not there. Because especially because that's one thing in D&D and in LARP, like it's you're the hero. It's from your point of view, and that's the awesome bit about it. So when someone else is telling you a backstory, a lot of the time you're like, oh, that doesn't. And the only time it's good in D&D or probably in LARP is when it becomes like relevant to like a character's development, you know. And it's like some people are very good at it, like. Dave, who plays Mercy, is very, very good at it because he weaves.
I don't know anything about Dave's backstory,
but he doesn't like he weaves it into his current role play. So it's not as if he's like, oh yeah, I was this and la la la. He would just be like, oh yeah, la la. You'll be talking about something like talking about true love, and he's like, all right, I received a letter yesterday from my retainer, or he has a messenger person, and he'll like drop it in that way because it's relevant to what is being said, instead of being that player who's like, oh yes, well I'm on this quest and blah blah blah. I've got my father's sword, or I'm looking for my father's sword.
Genuinely, you've just told me more about Mercy than I ever knew.
Yeah.
For me, Mercy just shows up and plays songs, and I give him some coin, and that's all I need out of that transaction. He's a bard. Like
he really does play that like tortured bard sort of role so well. I have
seen him, so I don't know his backstory per se, but I definitely I was obviously involved in the Flower Festival last year, and got lots of inside knowledge, which was just fantastic. And I just became like really, really engulfed in people's stories. There were so many people who were like, oh, I need you to give this rose to so and so when you do it. I need you to say these words exactly, and then come back and tell me what they said. And it was just fascinating. Like, and people would just absolutely volunteer the terrible things that they were doing and planning, like, and it was great. I was just like, yes, please tell me all of your secrets, I'm listening.
That's amazing, because it was like all the gossip like around that, like, because obviously we saw you walking around, and I heard people like, whispering, being like, oh, did they just give such and such a flower? Like, who did they give that from and everything? And like, it's all the gossip behind and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting.
We might need to give it a little bit of context. So like, just a touch of context. So I was playing
the Night of Flowers, which is a traditional gird. Is gird a verb? Noun? It's a thing that we do.
Yeah, I
to
guess
gird,
it's a verb. Yeah.
to gird.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was girding as the Night of Flowers, which is something in Dawn that we trade off on, and basically it's just like girding as the Black Knight, except I'm basically just flower messenger bitch, and it was great. It was just I went around just basically the entire camp, just like, hello, I'm the Knight of Flowers, would you like me to deliver any flowers for you? And then they'd be like, oh yeah, actually that would be really great. So this is somebody, I need you to give this to a general, General so-and-so, and I don't want you to tell them who it's from, but I need you to just like give him a really dirty look when you give him this, and then come back and tell me what he says. And I was just like, oh, okay, great, because it's not me, so I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really entertaining. I mean, there's lots of forbidden love happening in Dawn for sure.
No.
No way. No way.
I definitely received some flowers and was like, are you sure? Isn't that my Desperados arrived?
The Desperados, yes. You can get in character now.
Yeah. All my characters ever. Yeah, you're fine. You're hanging around. So like, yeah, so I was just like, there's no consequences for me, but are they going to know who this is from? Like, is this a previous thing, or is this like is this you telling them for the first time that you like them? Let me know what I'm getting into here. And then people just spill their guts, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I bet that's a really good game
good.
for like a newer player, because that's perfect, like you said. Because
Yeah.
you don't need context, so you
No.
you can just be like you just get pieces of other people's game. You just sneak in and be like, oh hey, and you get to and also you get to meet all these people as well. So it's an excuse to go up to certain people like generals and things like that and be like, hey.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely a couple of times where they would be like, oh, find the Archmage of so and so, and they would just say it like I was just like, who is that? I don't know who that is. And they'd have me like traveling off to a different nation. I'm like just wandering into the marches like, oh, has anybody seen the Archmage? Just
So like,
and I'm girded as well, so I'm just like, not even me. It was such a strange experience, and it was really, really warm. It was so warm, and I was wearing all black. No,
is E2?
E2.
Yeah, you see. Yeah,
Was it E2?
Flower Festival's
Yeah.
E2. Yeah, there was a warm one.
No, because spring is first. No,
No,
winter's first, then
Winter's first.
spring. Doesn't it happen during summer?
no.
Oh.
I think.
No, it was E2.
Yeah, I barely knew anybody. I barely knew where I was going. It was fun, but I definitely got bored after like a few deliveries outside of Dawn. I was like, cool, now you've made me walk all over the place. I'm done. Somebody else take this. I would like to drink now.
Yeah.
So like, did you do it like by yourself, or did you have like other people, accompany you just to give you that sort of hand, because you were, obviously it was like your second ever event? Like, was there anybody
I just
give
went
you a
by
hand,
myself. No.
God.
I think I had said to the egregore at the beginning, or I think actually we talked about it on Facebook first. A few of us had sort of said, hey, is anybody interested in being the Knight of Flowers? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So then the egregore kind of had a hit list of who to kind of go, well, you said you wanted to do it, here's the girding, like, get on with it, deliver these things. So she gave me the first flower to deliver, and then that just sparked. Everywhere I went to deliver something, someone else would give me something back to deliver somewhere else. And I did that for a while until I just got really hot and tired, and I was like, okay, I need food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then somebody else took over for me and did the same thing. So and similarly, I think it was their sort of first or second event.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So it seems like it was kind of carried by a lot of new people.
But
like you said, it's the best. It's kind of it was a good way to like get to know people, get to know, and even around Dawn, by E2, people would be like, oh, this is going to so and so camp. I'm like, I don't know where that is. Who are those people? And they're like, oh, the big red ones over there.
And then you're
so,
like,
which is probably still how I give and receive directions.
Yeah. What I love, because at first I thought I didn't know as many people as I should have, but what I realized happens is that people come into Dawn and they are given a house name, but they just mispronounce it slightly. And everyone seems to do that. So they're like, oh, I'm looking for house such and such. And you're like, at first I was like, oh, I don't know that house. But now I'm like, do you mean, was it this one? And I just give them a list. Was it this one? That sounds similar. And they're like, oh, that's the one. And I'm like, yeah, they're over there now.
If you tested me now, I think I could probably name 10 houses max. The rest of and I'm not going to do it because the rest of them would just get really,
you wanted
really
a test.
No, I think I just sometimes I genuinely hear names and I'm like, oh, you can see right. Sometimes you hear names and you're just like, I don't know who those people are. I've never heard that name before. Are they new? Like, no, they're that massive tent over there with 100 people in it.
There's a few houses that I haven't like interacted with yet, and probably by even like E3 I still didn't really know who they were. And then like you said, there are some big groups and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I've not interacted with them yet. And then there's obviously like smaller, like there's people that have houses that used to have lots of players previously, but for whatever reason only like 1 or 2 members have shown up, so they're like, oh yeah, this house, and you're like, who? Oh yeah, well they used to be, they have lots of players, but the players haven't been here past few events, and people so you're
die, or they move on to other nations, and then it's like you've got those 2 little people carrying the house, and they have to make up all this story for why is your Earl not here? Oh, he's back in Astolat, or whatever it is, and just get on with it. What's the really big house that kept having parties E3 and E4? Is it Beaumont or Durandal? I always get them twos mixed up.
Well, so
wait, is Beaumont Durandal a person?
Yeah, so
okay.
Dog's getting really excited.
So they're not mixing.
She knows.
Up.
Okay, so yeah, the
is it the Durandals?
No. So there is a
huge tent.
There was a house Beaumont and a house Durandal, and there's a character. There's the Earl.
It's so confused.
I'm pretty sure the player won't mind me saying that there's a character called who's Earl of House Durandal called Beaumont Durandal. But yeah, no, they have the big tent.
Where they have the bar,
big tent, and then next to them is another big house across. So like roundabout where we camp, there's the Brightstones behind us. They usually have parties going on. So usually
I've got an invite to the Brightstone party.
I've got it marked in my calendar.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I went to History and Virtue. Obviously, you were there. History and Virtue.
I was talking about it.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, remember History and Virtue? We were both definitely there.
We were both
definitely drunk.
Yep. I remember everything. I was driving.
He was driving and you and I were so drunk.
I was driving the oxen.
It's like, pull the wagon round, dear. She's a bit tipsy.
It's a long way back to Dawn from Highgarden.
Oh, it was so good. But that was when I first I didn't really connect the dots of who Brightstone was, like House Brightstone, but I've always anything to do with teal and mermaids, you've got me already. So I was and they had somebody in that house did a really beautiful photo shoot, and I was like, these guys have got it together.
They're so that's the thing, and they're
so thematic about it. It's really, really beautiful stuff.
And they started the same kind of time as us. I think like that new I'd like to get a few of them on the show actually, and because I don't know whether they LARP before, but I mean the great thing about their setup is obviously. Well, it's the setup. It's their set pieces. So we can hang out at ours in our little chairs, or you could be like, oh, come around to ours and we'll sit in there because they've got like these magnificent benches and things like that. I'm just like, yeah, we'll go around, sit over there because it's way more comfortable.
End up there so many times, just like because they've got like a really good fire as well. And you're just like, hello.
Yeah. That Nightfalls at Empire is basically just like find a fire.
Yeah.
I just wander. I've genuinely had a thing at night before in Empire where I've said, we're trying to find a group of people and we're like, where are you? And they're like, we're by a fire in Varushka. I'm like, cool. So we just went to every fire pit in Varushka that we saw. We're just literally following firelight, trying to find this group of people. Of course, they were off like in Navarre by then and never found them. But
trying to find people in Anvil is
it's impossible.
Yeah.
I accept now that if you separate, if the group separates, you're gone. That's it. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Like
that can be an issue, like going back to like the Night of Flowers thing, because like we did something similar with like the All East Garden thing. Both things are very good for like new players because it's like, oh yeah, go to talk to this person, go to talk to this person.
Yeah.
However, you can burn a lot of time, like you said, looking for if you're looking for one specific person, and if that person happens to be
on the move as well,
happens to be someone with a hat, someone who's a archmage, you can be asking around for hours and hours, and you might still never find them. And then if you do, they might be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just heading off to this other meeting." You're like,
every time.
Okay.
Every time you'd be like, can I just steal 1 minute of your time? And they're like, you can walk with me on my way to my next meeting. And you're like, okay, cool. And then I wonder who wears a Fitbit at Anvil, because I'm sure the results are just really fascinating.
I think it was E3 when the ground was like there was no moisture in the ground and the ground was so hot.
Yeah, my feet.
Everyone was complaining that their like feet were hurt because there was just no give in the ground at all, and the amount of walking you did, and you didn't realize how much walking around you did.
I'm not prepared. Do you know what? I'm just not prepared for the cardio in any way, shape, or form. Every time I get onto that battlefield, and I'm like, why didn't I prepare for this?
Yeah.
What not even a little bit. Like I didn't. Nothing. Not even a shred of cardio was done in preparation for this, and yet I'm gonna push myself now to like run through the forest with my weak ankles. Yeah. Like it's just.
It's true though. Like so many of us are like, we're going to do zero exercise.
Oh yeah.
Of any kind. For several months.
But I try though.
And then we're going to run around in the woods and hit people for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But a 6-week gap is bad for that though as well, because if you were doing it every other weekend, you would actually build fitness from doing that, right? So but because it's every 6 weeks, like 6 weeks is just long enough for you to lose your fitness, and then you go back and you're like, damn, I was supposed to be running every day, but it didn't happen.
It's like the weekend before, you're like, let's start getting in shape.
Never promise myself that kind of stuff ever. I don't promise myself things that'll never happen.
Hey, I mean, I was doing well like in January, like I was running like 5K 3 times a week, and then February came around and then I hurt my knee. And then we were talking before we started recording, like there's been so much sickness going around this time of year. And the last like 5 weeks, 4 weeks, I keep extending it. Last 6 weeks I've been ill. And you're like, right, I'm going to recover from that.
That is how time works, Oliver. Yeah. It does. It
well,
moves along.
My sickness.
As you know, so
I'm exaggerating my sickness. I was sick. I've been sick for years. But you're like, right, okay, well, I'll get over this and then I'll get back to it. And then 4 weeks go by, 5 weeks go by, and you're like, oh, crap, E1 is like now, currently in the time I'm recording, it's like literally 3 weeks today, right? So, yeah, so I ain't going to get like super, super fit in 3 weeks, so it's not going to happen.
Whereas I don't really have an excuse for not exercising. I just
don't.
couldn't be bothered.
Yeah. I don't put exercise on the to-do list, and then it's never something I miss. You
never feel bad for missing it.
Yeah, because I never intended to do it. So it's
It's the combat, because you're archery as well, right? So do you practice? Because we never, like, we're always like, right, we'll practice swordplay. we'll practice, because every time we get back, we're like, well, because that'll get you fit, and you're like, okay. Every time we're like, right, we'll practice, like, you know, at least like 2 or 3 times a week. I don't think we've sparred like once since E4. So
Janaya doesn't even know where a bow is by the looks of things.
Hey, I know where my bow is. It's right over there. I actually have a new bow, and it's beautiful.
Ooh.
It's very, very pretty, and very it's Dawnish, and it's Saren, and it's everything I want to. And plus, it's a bit more badass. It's got a heavier draw, so hopefully, but it's still within the limits, but just on that line of the limit. So it's just going to be really good. Although I definitely need to get more arrows. Keeping track of arrows, it was not as hard as everybody says it was going to be, because I was really, really determined. Like, I would go around to all the other archers I knew and be like, hey, these are yours, give me back mine, or I'm holding yours ransom. Until I got 4 of my arrows back, and the only one that I lost this year was at a player event, and to be fair, there was a lot of underbrush and mud and stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's fair. If I can make it through an entire season and only have lost 1 of my arrows, I'm doing all right.
The crew, I don't know who they are. Sorry, Robin, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, what do you, because I know that everybody does different things on their arrows to make them like so they can identify them. What do you do to yours? Like, do you do anything?
I got the Dawnish sun on the top.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I've obviously, like, around the side, I've got, you know, my initials and my player ID, but
smart.
On the top is the sun. And it's really funny because there have been times where I've seen people across the battle line aiming my own arrow at me, and I'm like, hey, that's mine. And then it comes towards me, and I'm like, I'm getting my arrow now.
You use my own spell against me.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Just like, I was determined. I don't know why I was so determined. It's like a magpie with my shiny little, like, must gather up all of my trinkets together.
Do you like cringe with, like, if someone else is firing your arrow? Because I have no idea how, like, breakable they even are. Like, do you cringe a bit and go?
I haven't tried, but do you know what? What makes me cringe is when you see hordes of people run. That's what really scares me. The shooting, you can't. I mean, touch wood. I don't think I've ever broken one from shooting it or from even hitting the target, like what I was aiming at. It's people stepping on them on the field, which is totally fair. They're not going to say it. It just happens, or it ends up in a bush and then someone falls in the bush or whatever, and then they just disappear. I honestly don't know how I've gotten as many back as I've got, because I've made some pretty poor shots last year. Just some real shots that just, I was like, well, that's in the trees, like no one's ever gonna find that, and then sure enough they just come back to you.
Did you come in like E1 like archery, you know, that's what you wanted to do, or were you like,
I that was the first thing I knew about my character. I was like, I mean, it made sense to me, because in terms of like my initial draw to fantasy in general, I've always liked archers. I've always liked archery in real life. And I did archery when I was younger, and I was really good at it. So when it came time to pick a weapon, I was like, well, obviously I'm going to use a bow, because one, any excuse to use a bow is a great improvement in my life, but also, God help me if I try to use a sword. Like, I have one on me just in case, but I've never had to use it. I'm much quicker to grab my wand and repel someone than I am to try and spar with them, because it's just not, I don't trust myself, you know, in sword combat. I don't have a shield either, so that makes it a lot harder.
So I think mechanically I think you're better off having a wand with repel than you are just a dagger, because if you have a dagger and you're not don't think you're very good at using it, but you just want it for like self-defense, you're better off having like a dagger and get the hero skill and have cleave. Because then at least you can just like stab someone on the chest and go cleave and then they're down, you know. But obviously if you just have a dagger, you're like trying to get them and you're like, 1 point.
And it's very close. I mean, the wand is only this big. That's getting really close to someone.
Yeah.
Especially if they have a sword. You know, they've got me before I just run. More often than not, if I see myself being cornered or, you know, I'm heading for something I'm like, this isn't gonna work out, I just run.
Yeah.
That's my bold strategy. I like to just and I actually started focusing kind of my battle technique, for lack of a better word, more on just being kind of in the background. I put more of my kind of more of my skills into healing. So turned my wand into a bone weaver wand because I realized I went into E1 really, really terrified because I was like, I have built a character that literally has 2 hit points, and because I use magic, I can't wear armor. But I hadn't got enough points for battle mage, so I didn't have battle armor. So I was like, I literally have 2 hit points. Like, I'm gonna die. And then what I realized was because I'm an archer, I'm not really getting hit so much because I'm back. What I'm getting is impaled by other archers. Yeah. So then I started focusing all my energy into being able to repair my limbs. And then what actually happened is I ended up using all of that. So I the Bone Weaver wand lets you heal limbs an additional 4 times on top of your personal mana, without using your personal mana or crystal mana.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. It was really expensive, but it was really cool.
So I can like scream for you if I'm like down on the ground and like,
well, if you're bleeding, I can't do anything. But if you've lost a limb, I can repair it.
A leg fell off. Help me.
You'd be surprised. In E4, I ended up healing the same girl's arm twice. She literally came. She was like, "Oh, I'm impaled." I healed her. She was like, "Great, amazing." Went back to the front line. Same arm. I was like, "All right, well, you're not being vigilant now. You can lose that limb."
Yeah, maybe I won't go to you then because that's usually me. I'm usually like,
I'll heal you once, and then you need to find someone else. Because I got that skill for me, and I didn't even use it on myself once in E4. I healed, because I also have obviously like my personal mana on top of that. So, and because I have repair limb as a spell. Well, you have to have repair limb as a spell to be able to have the Bone Weaver wand.
Okay.
So I ended up using that 6 times in the battle at E4. Not one of those was to heal my own limbs. There was all other people. So I was like, I kind of like the healing game a bit. It's all right.
Yeah.
I was like the poor healers near the front line of the battle. It was just like every 2 seconds, Godric's like, "It's me again." I did it again.
Like, what is it now? Like, there was sometimes I would be like, I would stumble back, and obviously because I'm like I'm either stumbling or I'm on my backside, and people would just get into the habit of being like, "What is it now? What is it now?" I'm like, no, it's just a strike down. I'm fine this time.
Just a strike down.
It's just a strike down. Just a mere strike down. I just need to get back up. I
should be fine.
Get back up and then run in, then back again. Like, it's my arm this time. Oh no, this is my leg. This time it's my leg. The thing is,
I really want hero skills. I've definitely seen the appeal over the last season. I was just like, all the people that I take down who just, they're like, I'm unstoppable. I'm like, you bastard. Like, that's just not fair.
Unstoppable was handy, especially for you, like if you're worried about like maybe getting into a situation where you just need to run. Because Unstoppable was one of those ones that it's the rules are quite specific, but sometimes you're like, you literally have to hit the ground, and then straight away go unstoppable. So you can't do it, like you can't really run away. You can't
wait till 2 minutes 59 of your bleed out and then be like, by the way, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah, you can't, because there's rules for playing dead, but you can't play dead and then be like, now I'm unstoppable.
But it's not playing dead if you're actually dying.
But you actually are dying. But also, like if you're wanting to use it for like being able to run away, like you wouldn't go to 0 and then like as you're running go, oh, unstoppable, and keep running. I think you do have to, but it
Go
might still work if you're like,
immediately.
because it worked like if someone impaled you in the chest and then you're down to 0 and then you go to the ground and you go, I'm unstoppable, you get back up and then carry on running. So it might be handy for you.
I think it was when we were having a conversation before, was I think I said to you guys before, that was the first time I realized that being impaled also affects your hit point. I probably should have died. I probably should have died at E1, to be honest. I'm on it. If I'm like, I don't, there's no clear memories where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely died and just totally cheated. But if I'm honest with myself, Theron probably died at E1.
Yeah.
I just don't remember exactly what the mechanics were.
Well,
because I genuinely was just like,
since we're all being
I thought
honest,
impale was impale and hit points are hit points.
Yeah.
I didn't think the two of them stacked. Like,
yeah, no,
it's the same as cleave, isn't it? Yeah, like cleave takes away a hit point and then it also cleaves you.
Yeah.
Well, but if you get cleaver impaled in the torso and you're not wearing armor, then you go down. You're straight to 0. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're on. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter if you're on 10 hit points. So you just hit the deck.
Yeah.
At 0.
That I had no idea of either. Yeah. I just assumed, and isn't the say you can't hit heads? Do you take a hit point if someone hits you in the head, or is that just in the face?
So this is one, like, I looked this up a lot because there was a lot of back and forth with the argument and arguments about this. And what I found on the wiki, and people can correct me if I'm incorrect, but headshots, what I found was that you don't take anything because you're not supposed to. Because
they're not allowed.
They're not encouraged.
But next, if it's your neck, which is also not allowed, you still take 1 point. And I don't know if that's because obviously when people are trying to hit shoulders and bits here, the next one get hit.
Like a
gorget.
Yeah.
And
I might be wrong.
It's like, well, why wear that armor if you're not preparing yourself to be hit in the neck?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've definitely taken an arrow to the back of the head and had the person be like, oh, that's a hit. And I'm like, no, because you shouldn't have hit me in the head. Yeah. So I'm not taking that hit because what you just did was wrong.
Yeah. No, I think I talked about it on the podcast when we were talking about that E4 battle where there was a lot of like headshots coming and someone literally whacked me across the head, knocked my prosthetic off, and was like laughing about it, and I was like, dude, like, then I didn't take that hit because I was just like, no, I need time out because I've just been smacked across the head. I couldn't even keep count, so it's like, well, you know, I think when it comes to that, you're just like, oh, I don't take that hit. But I have been hitting like the neck here, and I'm just like, well, that was a pretty good, and they obviously weren't aiming for my eyeball, so yeah, I'll take that hit. It's fine. I don't. Also, since we're being honest, I like at E1. I think I was a bit confused with. It was either get it together or stay with me. I think I took too many hit points from stay with me because I got confused. So
do you just get enough to get up?
Yeah, so stay with me. I think you get 1 if you're on 0.
Okay.
Stay with me can only be used if you're on 0 and on the ground, and you can get 1 back. Whereas get it together can be used at any point, and you regain 3 hit points. You don't go over your maximum. So if you've only got 2 hit points, you're not going to get an extra one, sort of thing.
Yeah,
but it will heal you just to maximum in that case.
Got you.
Yeah. So I think it's totally just I bring that up because just to say I think it's totally normal for people to like make those types of mistakes and be like, oh yeah, I think this is how it works. And
I think that players, I'd like to think that players and refs alike kind of the fact that we after E1 get to completely have a free reroll of our character makes me think that any mistakes I made at E1 nobody cares about, and I genuinely think that even like going forward, this season or whatever, I'm gonna keep making mistakes because it's still new to me, and I think as long as my mistakes don't directly and negatively impact someone else's game, there's definitely a difference between not taking a hit in a very glorious fight where it's very clear that you've been hit and you're just being a dick and not taking the hit. That's not something I would do, but something I'm not sure about, or a mistake I make, or something where I thought, oh, did I just trip over a tree or did an arrow hit me in the side? Like, I'm not really sure. I just genuinely think, who really cares about that? Like, at the end of the day, if I cheat, I'm only cheating myself. I'm not cheating other people.
Exactly, because if you are doing that, then what the hell are we doing? Like,
what's the point?
It's.
I'm not here to cheat my way into living forever, but I do genuinely make a lot of mistakes, and
mistakes are fine.
It's overwhelming. The battle is so
well. Yeah, you're expected. Obviously, if it's like thing is, I don't know if have you done any other LARP systems or anything? Because I know
no. So I've done player events. Yeah. Well, they were all non-combat player events.
Yeah, because
no, that's not true. I went to a pretty combat heavy player event. It's still Empire Universe.
They weren't combat heavy, but I lost an arrow shooting someone.
I was crew. I wasn't even a player. Because it was supposed to be really combat heavy, and I was really excited to kill people, and then we got there and nobody died, and it was really disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me that we're in the Barrens and people are going to die, and then I don't actually get to kill anybody. Like, so that's just
because there's a player event happening like this weekend, like it's set in like Brickeliand, and I think
Queen.
I can't remember.
I think about a fallen queen.
Yeah, and when they say, I think coming into LARP and learning about it, you see that term high threat, and I just go, oh no, I don't want to be doing that. But
no thanks, such is life.
Like hearing back from people who go to these events, they're like, oh yeah, no one died. I think they're just making it very clear that there's going to be combat, and it's possible
because
to die.
I think genuinely people. There's plenty of people who, well, not even non-coms, but plenty of people who even do like combat, sometimes just want to go to a player event where it's like, do you know what? All I'm going to do at this player event is have a meal and a drink and a chat. Yeah. And that's enough for me.
Yeah.
And I like to know, can I go around this corner, or is someone going to pop out of this bush and stab me in the middle of the night? Like, just let me know what level of preparedness I need to be on. That's what I need.
So I like brought that up because I know there's other systems that use like they don't have any hit points whatsoever. It's just like you go down if you feel like you should go down, which is
hard,
is hard, but you're like you said, it's overwhelming because you're in this battle, especially if you're a new player, and you're like, I've got to keep track of hit points, and then I've got people like shouting things at me and being like weakness, and I'm like, I don't know what weakness is, and I don't understand what's happening, and then you're like, then more time goes by, and you're like, wait, how many hit points am I on? I've got a potion. Am I on 2 or 3? Or it's tough.
Yeah, it is. I find it really, really difficult, and I've also the moment where role play for me always completely falls apart is when I have to die. I'm really bad at dying in character. As soon as I know I've got 1 hit point left and someone hits me, and I'm like, there's always like a 30-second delay where I've been hit and I'm like, oh, I'm dead now.
Guess I better go home.
Guess I better die. So I never die where I am. It's not because I'm not trying. My brain just seems to have like a delay. And I never die. I never just fall to the ground where I am. I always step back a bit, and then I'm like,
I know. Honestly, I can't do it either.
Where I'm supposed to die, ever, or bled out.
Yeah, bleed out.
Like when I was like bleeding out at one point, and I was like, I think it was actually when we had come through like the through the gate at one point, and when we were possessed. No, we were.
Yeah, we were possessed.
Yeah. So all of that, and I was like, and obviously they were all like trying to hit me, and I came down. I was like, you got me, and I was like, wait, that's not what? You got me? Like, what is that? I don't know. The girl's like, oh no, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Oh, I can make noise. Oh, I'm being dragged somewhere. Never mind, they've got me.
Yeah, like the countdown timer thing for me, because obviously the big thing when you're bleeding out, you can make noise.
You know what? It's 3 minutes.
I can't. Like, I mean, I can barely count. Never mind count and speak.
I have an end timer now.
That is actually really smart. That's incredibly smart.
Yeah.
I've always thought that. Luckily, someone has come to heal me quite quickly whenever I've been on, down. But I've always thought to myself, like, well, how would I actually know what 3 minutes was? Am I supposed to sit here and literally count to 60 times?
Yeah, you're literally supposed to do that, yeah.
And yes, that's because I don't know what 60 times 3 is.
It's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, it doesn't, like, it's a trust-based system, so the rules are supposed to be slightly loose, and it is like the in-game ethics of it is quite, it's a little bit unclear. Yeah, like if you make mistakes, that's fine. If you're like you say affecting someone else's game because you're cheating yourself out of like a hit point or something, or a hero point, that's not right. But I think we've discussed this before. I'm like, because I've speculated this, I'm like, so, because like people who, they like their characters. You paid a lot of money to play your character. You have a story that you're wanting to finish. You've got this person you want to go speak to. This storyline you want to like end the thread, and you're leaving the battlefield and you get hit in the back, and you're on 1 hit point. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty much a victimless crime to be like, oh, I'm just going to take that hit, and technically it's you shouldn't do that. But at the
I know, and I complain so much about people who don't take their hit points. Who don't take. It's really difficult as an archer, I think. It's just a real common gripe between archers. There's no when you get hit with a sword, it's very obvious that you've been hit by a sword.
Also, the person is in your face as well, being like, I saw that.
When I hit you from a distance with an arrow, especially people whose back is turned, and it's happened to me, so I know how easy it is to do, that it just, they're foam. It just sometimes feels like someone bumped into you. It doesn't feel like you've been hit. You might kind of feel something, but you don't know until you see an arrow on the ground or whatever that you've been hit. So, you shouldn't even have to call impale as an archer, but I do. And there's definitely been times where I've screamed across the battle line, like, get down, you lost a leg.
I took a really painful shot from an arrow at E3. Like, someone like shot me in the butt. And it was it was so painful. None of my armor was there. And I decided it was so hot that I wore less layers. So I
you should absolutely. What is this stupid trend with not having armor on your butt? Like, why? You're not the only one. There's
I don't have any armor on my butt.
What does butt armor look like?
I mean, you can just wear chainmail. I mean, if the chainmail's long enough, it covers your butts a lot of the time.
I mean, I'm not suggesting like booty shaped. like perfect
buns of steel.
Buns of steel.
That seems like the most Dawnish thing ever.
It actually does. If someone does not now create like a bakery called Buns of Steel, I'm gonna be real disappointed, Dawn.
But everybody in Dawn has to wear them, so that like when they're walking away, it's just.
No,
just be shiny posteriors in the distance.
I'll make one. I'll make a gold like butt shaped piece of plate that will go like
yes. We'll call it like Aphrodite or something. Just or what's that? Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be perfect.
I want it. I want buns of steel.
Shut up and take my money.
Bright golden buns of steel.
I think it's $1 million idea.
I think so too.
It's $1 million thrown idea.
It's $1 million thrown.
Could be rich. I don't know. The leaguers will probably want to invest. So there we go.
I know a leaguer. I'll get them to invest.
Yeah, invest.
They're just always swimming with cash.
Do the leaguers have a Dragon's Den style thing going on? We can just take them and be like, well, this is what happened before. I'm just standing with an arrow at your butt.
Why does that sound like the best idea ever? I mean, how many funny skits could you do? Well, what have you brought today, Godric? Well, it's a catapult. It works in reverse.
Well, it sucks people towards it.
It sucks. Pull this lever and the Darush will... I don't think this is going to work. No. How much of the business are you gonna offer me?
I'll give you 72%.
How many thrones do you need? Well,
I'm not in this for the money. I'm just in this for the sucking. Said every Kikabeo ever.
I mean, could you imagine that it would be? I mean, you could do some real funny stuff. You could be like, right, I've made, and you could like have a diagram of like a mechanical horse, but no one really knows what a horse looks like. So you're like, we could breed a selection of beasts that are four-legged. Have you ever wondered, my legs are really tired and my oxen is way too slow? Well, I give you this beast.
So what you're talking about here is trying to bring horses back to the Empire.
Yeah. We'll breed up something. We're gonna capture.
Try and stifle your creativity here. I mean, if you want to make this happen, I'm on board to watch, and just let it unfold.
So what we do is we selectively breed war rhinos down.
Yeah. You're gonna end up with a unicorn. That's what you're talking about. You're gonna breed war rhinos and your oxen together, and you're gonna get unicorns.
Exactly. I feel like you're on board. I feel like you're on the cusp of saying I'm in.
Yeah. Well, what do you need from me? I don't have any money.
Oh, damn.
It's okay, but keep practicing that pitch.
Dragon's Den.
League track. Even the name doesn't need to change, does it?
Yeah, it's literally yeah, and they would all be the dragons, and that would be totally fine.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah, amazing.
Oh,
do you want to have a little break? So I want to get more drink.
Yeah, because Janaya's done that thing that she does every time when we're talking. She makes me laugh so much that I'm crying, and like there's makeup gone into my eyeballs. So that'd be great.
Sorry, not sorry. Making requests for how I want my burger done.
You have it done medium rare, right?
No.
Medium rare.
Like my burger cooked. This is really controversial, okay? So, in a restaurant, when they say like, "How do you want it cooked?" I'm like, "I want it cooked." Like, I want it cooked all the way, because, in my opinion, I don't know. I've taken too many food safety courses, but like,
laughing in the background.
So, steak, absolutely, you can eat rare because it is a cut of meat, and the inside of that meat has not touched. It has no surface area, so there's no bacteria that can get it. But burgers are all surface area, so the inside has.
They're also just beef.
Yeah, but there's all the ground beef on the inside has been touched by air and bacteria, so not cooking it is stupid.
No, I agree. Like, I'm
don't at me. Cut that up the podcast, otherwise people are gonna come for me.
They're gonna come for you.
I like burgers to look a little bit pink in the middle. Okay, I like that.
But yeah, very much depends. Like, they need to be juicy. It doesn't matter. I don't think it doesn't matter if it's pink, but as long as they're juicy. Like, I prefer like if they're gonna overdo it, then I'm gonna be like, yeah, like cook it. Don't.
I'm not saying I want it burnt to a crisp, but I don't want my burger to bleed. I don't think it's just not okay. Like,
it's like every time I ask like for how people want things done, like I've just got this image of like me like cooking at LARP or something, be like, so how do you want it done? Like this, okay, cool. Everyone's getting it burnt to a crisp. Good fucking luck. That's all I know I can do on this thing.
Yeah. I mean, campfire cooking in the evening when you've had a few drinks is just really interesting, because it just gets really lazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something at E1 though. Like, I've saved a load of stuff in my freezer, and I really like eggnog, and I make really good eggnog. So I am making a big batch of eggnog so that E1 at night I can warm it up over the fire and have hot eggnog.
Well, I know where I'll be.
Hell yeah. I'm just thinking I'll be Sarah and Arnell just like totally drunk.
Just getting drunk off eggnog.
I think we should do some like, we should see if we can get a hold of some like mulled cider as well or something. And if we're already heating stuff.
Is there like
I've got stuff for that.
Make mulled mead.
Well, yeah, I guess.
We could try it.
You can make mulled wine, so
we could try mulling anything, really.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, a lot of like ciders and wines are like brewed for the purpose of mulling, but I'm pretty sure any wine you can have hot. It's just not going to be the best version of it, if you like. So if you have if you have one that's like just from the supermarket, you can
we don't want to burn away the alcohol, because that's the important part.
That's the important bit. It's funny, like how I mean really, like if you mull anything, it's gonna like take a bit of the alcohol out of it anyway. So you're gonna.
I don't know. I've definitely been drunk at a few like church community events.
Who are we associating?
Supposed to drink that wine, by
the way. That's why they didn't let me come back.
I love the location as well. It's like give me a drink, give me a location, give me an occupation.
No.
Both side at a church community center.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What do you mean I'm not supposed to pee in the communion bowl? I mean, no offense, I swear. I really respect church.
Yeah. It's I mean, I like the way. The way's great. There's a religion you can get behind.
My biggest struggle at Empire is not saying "oh my god." I think I say Jesus and "oh my god" 20 times a day.
Yeah, I mean,
what could we replace that with?
By the virtues.
Yeah, the virtues. Yeah, virtues. Yeah. Damn it. I think because I don't know if I've ever done that slip up. Thing is, what's funny about the because you've gone on about the like the food truck space, and that's an interesting little space because like obviously it's like a communal bit where everyone's going to get food. It's technically out of character, but it's not completely out of character either. Like people,
it depends, I think.
Yeah,
and there's always that weird middle ground. Like, is God out of character?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because until you get to God, we call it the civil service.
Yeah.
But then when you get there, it's God.
Yeah.
So, it's bizarre because like in this, so that like I'm just kind of like painting a picture for people who might not have ever been to Empire. So like when you go through the Sentinel Gate, there's actually a little bit like in between where it's supposed to be out of character, right? Yeah. But like a lot of times you're still in character.
We're sort of in the void.
Yeah, you're in the void, so it's some way where you can be like, okay, right, we're out of game now, but we're not technically back in Amble. I mean, there are small bits like that where people go, right, okay, this is out of character, by the way, and this is in character. But in general, when you go to Empire, there's no real like, you know, you don't cross a threshold and people go, right, this is out of character, or oh, this is in character.
Yeah.
Timing just kind of starts and just flows, right?
I think it totally depends on, from what I've found, it totally depends on the group and the people you're with. I know, I mean, like some of the guys, some of the stags, like I'm much better at it than me. You know, they'll be very clear about when it gets to nighttime and maybe we're sitting around the campfire having a discussion that's kind of crossed over into OC a bit. And it's like midnight, you know, technically it's not time out, but the vibe is very clear that we've kind of timed out.
Yeah.
And if anybody so it's my dog Squeaky Toy. It's very clear, like if anybody new approaches us, they'll very clearly be like, hey, we're OC, by the way. And I'm like, oh, do you know what? I didn't even think to like warn other people.
Oh, really?
That's what we're doing.
I hadn't considered, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, well, they just walked up to us to talk, and I guess we're just talking. But it never occurred to me to be like, oh, by the way, if you're in character, we're not, so you might want to go away.
Yeah.
And they're quite good at that.
I think because you've gone on about earlier about like doing things, like becoming your character, right? And your character is basically just you, but like ramped up a bit. Like when you come to
Saren is Janaya without consequences.
So like the improv and acting advice I had about making a character is that how's the character going to act? Because that's the question you got to ask. And it's like so the advice I got is that you got to ask yourself what's true for the character. So when you first come to Empire, you might not know what's true, right? But you're going to act on what you think about what's going on in the world, right? So when you learn a little bit about the Druge and
easier.
What you feel about the Druge, and when someone talks to you about the Druge and what you want to do about the Druge, you are you're pretty much playing yourself. You know, you might have a different name, you maybe like slightly tweaked how you speak or how your posture is, but you're playing you, but you've just been given new information and then you're acting on it. So my point being, when you get to that time of night where you've had a bit to drink and it's the out of character, a bit to drink, the out of character, in character conversations become the same thing, because people are like,
and it's not like there's a bell or anything, is it? Like
no.
But nobody rings the bell at 1 a.m. like, oh, by the way, we're done now.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of, I think when you talk about kind of time in and time out, I mean, I don't know, there's supposed to be like a time in noise as well, isn't there? But
there isn't winter markers. So winter markers,
okay.
Yeah, so the winter markers blow a horn.
Well, yeah, I mean but that's not. There's no official PD person blowing a horn and going, by the way, it's time in now.
Which, by the way, I thought was actually supposed to. When my first event, I actually thought
that's
was.
And I think
I was waiting on.
When you're a newbie, like that's the expectation. You're thinking someone's going to come along and go, in character. But it's not like that. It completely depends on your group and the people you're with and how dedicated they are to the role playing. And I totally respect like people who take it super serious, and that whole scale of people who take it really serious to people who are just there to have a good time, which I think is probably the part of the scale that I'm closer to.
But they both fit, right? They both fit in the world. Like there's no like, oh, there's the serious role players over there. It's not like when you're playing like World of Warcraft,
when I come across those people, I'm like, I see them and I'm like, total admiration. I wish that I could throw myself in. You know, like when I see people on the battlefield, or you know, somebody in their house has died or something like that, and they just throw themselves to the ground and they're bawling their eyes out, and I'm like, God damn, that's good game. Like I wish. I mean, maybe you know, I've only had one season, so I think maybe it does take that being invested because you've literally invested in it. At this point, you know, Saren's just a character who has some stuff and likes some people, but I was going to say nobody would know if I died. I'd make people know if I died, but
yeah, it's the Dawnish way.
Yeah,
I don't want to die. Yeah, it's the Dawnish way, isn't it? I don't want to die until I know that my death would leave, you know, people would carry my body back and be mourning over me in the glory square. If that's not what I'm getting, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm gonna pretend I'm not taking hits until that's the truth.
I'll decide when I die.
It's okay, don't worry. Arnell will have your back. You die out there on the battlefield, she will avenge you. She will
shut up. You're gone.
Your name.
You're gone on the battlefield.
We are gone.
You guys disappear.
Well, it depends if you're at the front or the back.
You're always at the front and I'm always at the back.
If we get pushed back to you, I will defend you. But
yeah, I may occasionally see you run past covered in blood, and I'm like, oh, hey, and you're running off somewhere else with your swords and everything, and I just honestly, like the highlight for me in like E4 battle was I found a good stump. I found a nice, good, really well.
There's nothing better for a good stump. For a high ground, yeah.
Really good stump. And I was like, I'm going to stand on this stump and I'm going to have a good visual of everyone on the other side. And it was great. Yeah. That was honestly like one of my highlights of that battle.
Yeah. The stumps are valuable actually, because there's not many of them, and it's a very flat woodland as well.
Yeah.
You can
very flat. I think there was one time where we were monstering and they'd said, oh, you're going to be playing one of the ones that don't really do archery, so you'll need to bring something else. And then there were still archers there, and I was like, oh, these are just defiant people. I should be one of them. and then they gave them really, really great things to do. So they ended up like behind that wood fence thing, and they were up on a platform so that when people pushed through the gate they had like really great vantage point, and I was like, I should have been an archer for this but I do love being able to like try out different weapons and, you know, see what it would be like to be heavy and have a hero call, and that's fun. But I was very jealous of those archers that during that battle.
Yeah, it's what you
that
get
was
used
E1
to as well.
Wasn't it?
Probably.
I remember like that, like E1 was obviously like my first experience monstering as well. And I was a runner. So that was great. Never ran a day in my life. So I was a runner. That's when I got in trouble for climbing over what I thought was a climbable overable tree.
Climb overable.
Yeah,
just
push through. Yeah.
People seem to really struggle with that kind of
that.
barrier thing. There's a real debate, I think, in every battle about what is a barrier and what isn't, because there's always going to be an archer or someone who tries to reach through a gap and get you, and I'm like, I'm like, well, this isn't fair, because as an archer, I'm not allowed to shoot through the trees. If there's a tree line, even if it's only halfway up, you're supposed to imagine it's all the way. If you're obscured, then you're obscured. That's part of the role play, but not everybody sticks to it. Yeah. So there's definitely been times where an arrow has come, through a bunch of trees, and I'm like, well, that shouldn't exist. Yeah, like that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, because in safety as well, like you're not allowed to like reach around a tree to get someone either. So
exactly.
I was pulled up on that, because I was like someone like stood right. Someone stood there, and I'm like, I could just like reach around here and just there you go. And they're like, oh no, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah, so you think you're being really clever in those moments, and then a ref comes around and really knocks you down a couple of pegs, and it makes you feel like you've been told off at school.
Yeah.
It's like one of the like nicest times that I noticed was like at one point when we're fighting, I didn't realize there was a load of like thorn bushes behind us, and it was going into a bit of a ditch, and we're fighting these druge, and the druge all went, no, stop, and they went over to like grab us because I was like about to fall into these bushes, and it was that like moment of, oh yeah, you're human people underneath all those masks.
Yeah, you forget the orcs are people.
I forget sometimes. Sorry.
That immersion, like there's I can't remember who we were speaking to the other day, and they were talking about their experience monstering, and they're like, oh yeah, like we've had to like in the last event we had to like take off our masks and be like, hey Imperials, remember we're like we're people, we're players, because it's difficult to get you get so G'd up, and they look like monsters.
Fighting orcs is the easiest way to be immersed, I think, because when it's just other players, who are dressed as God, I can't think of any of the human versions of
Yugara.
Exactly, right? And you're like, oh well, these people are just people. I can't do anything to them. I don't really want to. And then an orc will come along, and you'll be like, haha, fair game.
Let's go. Yeah.
Hell.
Actual monsters.
Terrorize them. Yeah.
And you've seen them strategize, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do this. And you're like, no, you're not going to do this. I'm going to kill all of you. Yeah, no,
there's something about orcs that just make me want to kill. Like, it's just really satisfying.
Yeah. It
is. I remember vividly, like, bragging about after E1, like, oh, I shot an orc and it was so great. And then someone pointed out to me, like, you really shouldn't be bragging about hitting an orc in the crotch, because that's a super illegal shot. Like it's definitely not allowed. And I was like, oh well, I wasn't aiming for his crotch.
No, as long as you weren't aiming.
I was aiming for the part of him that was unarmored. It's not my fault that he didn't armor his groin. Like,
hey, cod pieces are a thing. Yeah,
exactly. Just because you're an orc doesn't mean you're a savage. Get a cod piece.
Yeah. Hey, I see.
Get some buns of steel.
I mean, I see they don't. There's an issue there, isn't there? Robin, you know more about this.
What?
Oh, they don't have penises, do they?
Is it?
Oh yeah, they don't have penises. So they have this cool like tool that they can use like to have sex with humans.
Yes. Yeah,
that's all I know.
Like a have you've been shown the tool, haven't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, when I was in the orc camp, one of the orcs, she pulled it out and showed it to me, and
this is the type of role play that happens sometimes.
Oh no, it's great. We had a great conversation. Anyway, it was really
just a conversation.
The lore is deep. It's really deep.
Well, like she did say that if I wanted to know more, I should come back like later on to her tent. But I was busy, so
Yeah.
And also, you're in love, obviously, as well.
Aranel does not have any idea what this orc was asking, okay? Aranel is so clueless.
I could not tell in that moment if Aranel literally was just that naive or if it was just you. Just honestly like, oh, she just seemed like a really nice lady. And I was like, yeah, she was trying to sleep with you. Like,
well,
it wasn't until we were discussing it, like after on the podcast, and we were talking about it, that like a little like.
Oh wait, did you really
pinged,
not?
And I
was
went,
that another one that you didn't get?
That was another one I didn't get. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I didn't get that.
because right, like there are like we've told this story multiple times, but yeah, like Aranel had gone to the Imperial Orcs and had been kind of bragging about Godric
the
being
best
like
fighter.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, oh, I'm doing this for my true love. Godric's the best fighter. He's great with the shield. Blah blah blah. And the orcs are like, all right, well maybe we should escort you back to the Dawnish camp. And you're like,
they're so kind.
Yeah. So Aranel comes back.
I was saying.
Aranel comes back and is like, oh yeah, and tells me this story. And I honestly, in character, out of character, I was like, I can't figure out whether Robin is being this like. Does Robin actually not know, or is she trying to play Aranel as being naive? But I know she wouldn't, because I don't think Aranel is actually as naive as Robin is. So
that's what I mean. Sometimes I really struggle to know where the line is. I don't know if it's just honestly, especially a lot of the time that I bump into you guys as well, like you especially, Robin, is like, you know, when you come back to the Dawnish camp sort of dusk, early evening, and we've all been drinking, and then you'll just be like, oh, I'll be like, what have you done today? Tell me about your day. What's going on? And you'll tell me all these like, oh, somebody just invited me to their camp, and then they showed me a dildo, and they asked me if I wanted to see porn.
I told you about that.
And I'm like, I don't know if this is Robin right now, or if you're just really, really good at like, if your role play is that Aranel is just like dumb. I can't. I have no idea.
Aranel is supposed to like not be naive, and I didn't realize how naive I actually am as a person.
So
and it's really hard to play a character that's not naive when you are naive.
You're trying to play like a really smart, logical character, and you're just like, everybody's so lovely, everybody's so nice to me.
This is one of those thresholds in roleplay, because there's a few of them, isn't there? There's like being like, I want to roleplay the intelligent character. I want to play a roleplay higher than my actual intelligence. That's one of those that's like difficult. I mean, for me, Godric is probably way more confident than I am, and obviously it's like an uphill battle sometimes. I'm like, oh god, you know, I don't actually want to go and do this, but I'm like, but Godric would definitely do it, which is the magical thing about role playing, is that it forces you to do it because you are going to lean into it. So it's good to have those, even though you might think, I want to play a charismatic bard.
Yeah.
And in D&D, you can kind of hide behind dice a little bit. It's still hard in D&D. It's still hard to play a charismatic character or an intelligent character.
But I know the choices aren't so much up to you in D&D, because you can say, oh, well, here's what I would do next, and I'm going to try and do this incredible thing. And then they're like, cool. Well, you know, DM says, roll for it. And then it just completely fails. And you're like, ah, darn it.
Yeah.
But in LARP, like you have to follow through with the crazy stuff that you come up with.
And there's still a failure and success mechanic there, but it's just not it's not a written mechanic. It's just real.
It's totally based on, okay, well, I'm going to challenge this person. Are they actually stronger than me? Mm-hmm. Probably, yeah. But yeah, it's just trying to find your strengths and like actually leaning on them.
Yeah.
I think some people totally make it through the game just throwing themselves headfirst into every single challenge, not caring whether they think they're going to win or not. And I think that's a great game too.
Yeah.
Like being like the lovable idiot who will just say yes to anything.
Yeah, because I
love those characters.
Exactly. But that's maybe a barrier for other people as well. People might be like, oh yeah, no, I'm really, you know, I'm quite studious, and I feel like I would like to play an intelligent character, but I don't feel like I'm like gregarious and bold and brash, and I can't go running into battle. That might be a barrier for someone else.
Yeah.
Whereas, for me, I might be like, oh yeah, I would love to play a day mage in Urizen or something, and be like this scholar that wants to be of high intelligence kind of character. And I'm like, but it's if you do things like that, you can grow as a person, because even though you're like, oh, I can't role play intelligence because I don't feel like I'm intelligent. But it makes you try it.
You have to try. That's the thing. Yeah. Then when I said about like kind of those little golden moments that in like E1 and E2 where I was like just getting glimpses of who Saren was, that's exactly it. It's the same for me as Godric. It's all about confidence. It's just that Saren just does not question at any point whether she's the most influential, interesting person in that room at any given time. She just knows she is all the time, and that's really hard to play when you're new, because in real life you're walking around Anvil like, oh, where am I going, who am I going to talk to, what's going to happen, all of this is unfamiliar. But I'm trying to walk with my head held high and my shoulders back, and really just like, I don't give a crap about any of you. Like, I'm just here for the experience, and nothing that happens is of any consequence to me. That's the vibe.
Yeah, you do give like that vibe off, actually. Like when I've seen you, like I see it's like what you're doing, like in the sense of like, if I look around being like, I need someone to help me, you, because you've got that vibe, even though like, oh God, we know you don't know, but still.
I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. But it's like you said, I think I learned and started to feel much more comfortable in the fact that you don't have to know everything about Empire. Things that are, I just kind of feel like things that are meant for Saren will come to Saren. Not that I'm passive and I stay back and I wait for things to happen, but if someone approaches me and is like, hey, do you want to help me with this thing? I'm like, yeah, okay. And the opportunities that come my way, I just take on, rather than beating myself up for not going out and finding every single opportunity. I just focus more on being who Saren is, which is just someone who wanted to come to Anvil to have a different kind of life than she would have had, back home, which was just hunt and work. She just wanted to learn about magic and whatever other kind of path that takes, I'm kind of okay with. And I see Anno say, like, I think it doesn't feel to me like I'm being untrue to the character to just kind of be like going with the flow, because a super confident person who thinks, oh, everything just kind of works out my way is going to just go with the flow and just sort of let things happen and let opportunities come.
And they will. Is that like an outlook that you've developed after like you're a player, or was that something you kind of knew from the start? Because I got to admit that what you mentioned, the former, I felt a little bit, especially in fact, I felt it a couple of times in small doses, but especially E1, I was like, oh God, I didn't kick up enough, dust.
I still feel it now. I absolutely still feel it now. I when I mean, even like the first time I saw like pictures of you guys on the battlefield and you're like in the front of it and you're taking on these and when you told me about skirmishes you'd been on, taking these monsters on, just the two of you, and I was like, that is incredible. Like, that is what I wanted to be. But I never came into it thinking that I was going to be combat heavy, and actually really, really turned around and realized I actually really love combat, and it's really
the
fun.
best, isn't it?
It's so good.
It's so good.
I still really struggle, even when I'm in character, to shed that fear. I don't know what I'm afraid of. Like, what is there to fear? They're full of weapons.
It's bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
But there's still a part of me that's like terrified.
Yeah. I totally
somewhere in the back of my mind, of just coming head to head with someone and having to die. And
hey, I mean, I do that, but from a like a conversational and political part, I'm just like, oh, I could never do that, and you talk to someone who is like talking circles around you, or you feel like they are, and you're like, oh no, and then you get nervous and you're like, what the hell am I afraid of? This person isn't actually a senator.
They're talking about fiction.
Like, no, they're not actually a general. They're just it's just like, where is the fear
seem like
from?
they are, don't they? It's hard. It's easy to, when you come away from it and you're back home and you're all comfy and warm and showered and you're like, what was I so afraid of? But when you're there and you're in it, and to be fair, like, okay, so one of the tall stags, I mean, is heavily involved in the politics game. And the things he says to me, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, this all sounds really overwhelming. And I from the outside, I'm like, this looks really fun. I'm really happy for you. But I just don't get it. Maybe if I went to Senate and saw, the theater of it, I would have a bit more of a frame of reference, and maybe it would pull me in a little more. Yeah. But
you're following what you're interested in, because some new players do jump straight in and they're like, yeah, I want, like, I'm going to be, in the wisdom, assembly or whatever, and be like, that's going to be my game, because they're interested in it. I think forcing yourself to be interested because someone else is, because you get a little bit, like someone does, they come up to you and they're like, oh yeah, this is happening in such and such, and you feel bad because you don't know what's happening in wherever, however, like, you've just got to keep reminding yourself that that is the game. So when if someone says, oh yeah, this is happening in Spiral, and you have no idea what the hell Spiral even is, and you can just say, like, wait, what is that? What and that it's their game, because that's the thing they love to talk about. They're going to want to talk about it. They're not going to turn around and be like,
oh, you're an idiot.
What? And then walk away from you. They're going to be like, oh, well, I'll tell you about Spiral, because this thing happening in Spiral. And if you don't know about this, then, can I convince you to get your military unit to do this? They will tell you about it.
I don't have any military units. I just have a forest of amber gelts.
I have a forest. Go trees, attack.
Like, it's scary though, like, especially when that part of the game is going on. Like, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but see if there's like a meeting or something going on, and obviously I know, out of character, I know they are more than happy for people to come over, to be involved, to be interested in, but all I feel is as if I'm at work and I need to chat to my boss, and they're in a meeting and there's a meeting sign on the door, and I'm like, shit, oh, I need to go in there, and okay, I guess I'll just wait outside this tent. And people are like, oh, you can come in. I'm like, it's okay, I'll wait till they're done.
No, I cannot come
I'm not coming in there.
No. I did you guys go to the new player brief when you started?
Yeah,
we did. Yeah,
I remember them being like, some of you guys are going to be 9-to-5ers, and if you find yourself sat in a meeting thinking, do you know what, I spend my entire life in meetings, why am I here? You can just leave. And I was like, that is the best game mechanic ever.
Yeah.
You can just leave.
Yeah,
that's just a good exercise to try.
You can just leave.
Yeah,
Conclave gets boring, as it inevitably does. You can just walk out.
Yeah, so that's a good tip for new players, because the nature of the game you might get, because like, obviously we ended up in military council. That was interesting, and it's a good story to tell. I
will be going back to military council, but that was a lot, and it was really heavy.
It also let me know that that's not what I'm ready for yet. That this is where what could happen, but there is game for you. So like that's the thing. Like choosing your nation, your archetype is so important, and it's okay to make a mistake with that. We were quite lucky. I think we've chosen. I don't know if I can speak for all three of us, but I'm pretty sure we've all like chosen a good nation to start out with. However, like, because
I have no regrets. About
like I knew that I wasn't interested in the economy side of the game, and you will talk to players that are so passionate about the trading and the economy part of the game that they will. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, should I be doing this? But no, you like if
it's like life though, isn't it? I mean that is literally life. You can you can literally, just get a peek at like a subculture or, a community around you and be like, oh, I didn't even realize this existed. Should I be a part of this? And then you kind of have to have a word with yourself and just be like, do you know what? You can't do everything.
You can't. No.
So I try to focus on the stuff that gives me the most joy, that's the furthest away from my real life. And yeah, I mean, I dropped Summer Lore after the first event, and because I was like, I still definitely want magic, but having this lore isn't really helping me, and I could definitely be using that XP to better use, but I do want lore again, and but now I know more about the other kind of lore. So I'm like, what spells look fun? What do I actually want to use spells for? Do I want to use spells to be someone super useful and helpful and change the face of the Empire? No, I just want to change people into changelings and stuff like that. And just really like just cause chaos and mayhem.
Yeah. You got to chase what you're interested in. Like circling back to what you were talking about before, being like, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and you had like developed this outlook. So from like E1, where you haven't like you don't not entirely sure what you're going to do, and you might have anxiety of, I'm not creating enough, I'm not kicking up enough dust and things like that. Do you, because I know what it's like for me, because coming into E1 now, I'm pretty sure that things will come to me. Do you feel like that now? Because I feel like I think
I'm still unsure, to be honest. I mean, I definitely have a better foothold in things where I can kind of be like, okay, now I know if I want to create X game, I have to do Y, or I have to seek out this person or do this thing. I honestly, I'm still not 100% sure what my end game is, what my goals are. As a character, I think my motivation at this point is that Saren has found a good life that she enjoys, and that's enough for me. She sought out a different life and she found it, and I'll just keep going that way. Like, I'm still Yeofolk, and unlike you guys, you traitors. Wait, are you?
Hey.
Arno, technically still a Yeofolk.
Still a Yeofolk.
I am
for now.
For now, you have your plans to become noble, and I always had plans to become noble, which is why I focused my initial costume on being very peasanty, because I wanted to be able to have like a real glow up
transition,
and I didn't want it to be like, oh well, you kind of looked like that already, so it's not really that like I want to go from literally like rags to ball gowns, but I'm not so concerned with how I get there. I've got lots of ideas, and I've got ideas of how I could get there in different ways and paths. But I'm pretty happy for any of them to happen. I'm very much.
You're a bit more relaxed in like, what will be will be.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I'm not invested in the character and that I don't care about it. It's just that I'm not going to expend that energy and anxiety in coming up with my perfect ideal in a world that's a lot like the real world. It's totally dependent on other people. It's not like D&D. Well, okay, so I guess in D&D you've got a bit more like the dice can mess things up for you and other characters can mess things up for you, but I think because it's more enclosed, you do have a lot more opportunity to kind of be like, well, this is my character and this is what she's going to achieve and this is what's going to happen.
It's a different form of storytelling. Like the LARP game we're playing in Empire is long form storytelling. So you don't have to be like, right, we need to squash this movie into like an hour and a half. That means it needs to have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It doesn't matter if you're like, if someone comes up and asks you, and I keep having to remind myself because I am at this stage where people go, oh, so what are you up to now? Now you're noble. What now? And I'm like, I don't
What
currently have an answer.
What do nobles do? Like,
I still don't know, and I keep having to remind myself that's okay because I know that something will come up. You know, I'm not panicking that I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna sit in the field and twiddle my thumbs now for 3 days.
every time I worry that I'm not doing enough, which it's a lot. It's a lot. There, I mean, especially in Dawn. I think in Dawn we have so many dramatic characters, and I mean that with all the love in the world. I watch them roleplay, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, I wish I could stand in the glory square and scream about my family name and how you've dishonored me, and swing my sword around and beat the other guy and just be fantastic. And that's great. But it does kind of create that little niggling voice in your head, like you were saying, you know, I'm not doing enough. Am I throwing myself into this enough? I think I resign myself that that'll just not resign myself. I reassure myself that that'll come with time, and that those people are likely very experienced. They've been doing this for years and years and years. We're 1 year in.
Also, it's the comparison thing as well. Like it's like they say,
it'll kill you.
What's the same comparison as the Thief of Joy or something, right? So
absolutely,
you hear like you say, you know, you like, oh yeah, you know, I've seen you guys, you know, pictures of you guys in the battlefield, but like we're looking at other people being like, oh yeah, they did this real cool thing in the glory square, and they did this and they did that. You know, it's and when you actually you can sit there and feel like, oh, I didn't do anything. I've heard this from other people as well, talking to newer players. I'm pretty sure it was like maybe I think Steve was saying on the when he was on the podcast, he was like, I ask a new player and they're like, oh yeah, how was it? Oh, I didn't do anything. All right, and then when you started talking to the new player, you're like, oh yeah, well I did this, and then I ended up in this syndicate thing, and then this happened, that happened, and they're like, well, you did a lot then, right? And they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. But I think because you maybe like, especially during the weekend. And you're maybe like,
it's so hard to, I could come in with all the best laid plans, but the weekend's going to go the way it's going to go. It's just going to happen because it's I'm in character, but also there's real life. Like I remember E4 realistic, I'd set myself the task. I will be happy if I've left E4 at least having done a skirmish, because I hadn't done one all season. And realistically, I didn't. I missed. I chronically run late, obviously, and missed getting through the Sentinel Gate a couple times. And then one of the times I was like, oh, I could make this. I was just really hungry and tired, and was like, do you know what? I'm not gonna push myself and feel terrible. Realistically, I just need it. I need to just sit down for a bit. I've been on my feet all day. It's a lot,
and it's okay.
I really take comfort in the fact that there are two older gentlemen who I always see just hanging out in Wise Guys, like playing cards and drinking all day long. That's their whole game. And they just look so happy, and I'm like, do you know what? That every time I see them, every time I think to myself, I'm not doing enough, I remember those two dudes, and I just think, do you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter what you do, as long as you come.
And they are doing a lot, because that's what makes it a proper fantasy world. Like, that's what adds to, like, because if everybody was a Godric, then it would be a shit game, right? Not just because it's me, but like, if everyone was doing exactly the same
real
thing,
Empire, there would be people who just pedal, roll their wagon around all day selling cakes, and I love that people can have that game, like you were saying about seneschals in Dawn, and people who make trading their whole game. They wander around the camps, and they'll come up and just go, any Amco, anybody selling any of this? And I think to myself, like, they are just literally walking Anvil asking for stuff. That's their whole game. And it makes them happy.
It's full immersion into that world, like you said. You've got these traders wandering around, you've got children playing, you've got older gentlemen playing cards in the local tavern, and all of that together creates this huge immersive world that we all get to play in and be part of.
Because it really makes you feel like you can just step out of your tent and go for a wander, and you don't know what you're going to see. And it is going to be, it may not always be, a massive thrill ride, but it is going to be surprising, because it's authentic in that there are people who don't need to be the hero. I take a lot of comfort in that.
Definitely. And sometimes you don't know what you're experiencing until you look back on it. The one thing that I've it's really been valuable about doing like this podcast, like, so you were talking about like you're going on the skirmish like after E3. So E3 it was so in character I didn't do what I needed to do. Out of character I didn't do what I needed to do. I took it off because at the time I was like, this is my holiday. It's the middle of the summer. I'm tired. I want to have a drink. I don't want to be stressing out all weekend. And just things that happened. There was like comical things that happened to my character, and I didn't get enough love stories and things like that. And I actually, like, out of character, I did. I felt
so good.
I did, but this is the thing.
I'm so sorry. I shouldn't laugh.
But you should.
You're literally talking about your sad little story.
But you should, because
that's fueled me.
That's why it's good. Because me personally,
your
I was
pain
like,
and misery brought me so much joy, and you should take real heart in that.
But that was,
I forget the fact that gave you like game like that pain, suffering.
But how down was I, Robin, on the way back from E3? I was like, oh, because I felt like out of character. I was like, shit, I didn't do enough. Like, I was like, really, because we had an idea of kind of how we wanted the test to go, but a lot of that happened organically through like role play, which was good. And I was,
it just helps that
I was very true to Godric as a character.
Yeah,
too true, because my own, because my intelligence and I'm not as naive as, so unlike Aaron, I'm nowhere near as naive as Godric. So me leaning into Godric's naivety and kind of silliness at times, like, really made it difficult. And then I actually felt like, oh crap, I was supposed to get this many love stories, and I got like, I didn't even get one. I got like one love story, and we came out.
He could beat us for love stories.
But it was great, because when I started talking about it to people, like you said, Janaya, like you started like I'm like, shit, this is actually that event was like, I felt at the end of it, I was like, I've wasted an entire event. Like when I was driving home, I was like, I wasted an entire event.
The way it went. I mean, I would have had nothing to write about. I would have had nothing to write about if both of you were neck and neck the whole time. Yeah. It would be super boring.
Yeah, it would be a boring story.
So good.
Yeah.
It was such a good story to tell and be a part of. It was
we haven't even talked about the Dawnish Herald, have we?
I know. We've not even talked about it yet. What the hell?
So quickly before we run out of time.
Quick plug.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, for E1, when you said like, "Are you ready?" Me and Ben, who plays Lord Eamon, we were literally just having this conversation yesterday where he's not going to be able to make it, and he is like the editor. I am the super dysfunctional ADHD goblin who turns everything at the absolute last possible minute that he requests it. Maybe even a day later, drives him mad. I'm sure he hates me. Anyway, I was saying to him, I obviously want to do some writing, but if you're not going to be there, I don't know that I'll be able to pull together the editing. So the Dawnish Herald for E1 is on cold at the moment. Okay, because we're also running. So Ben's kind of running his own LARP as well, obviously, that you guys are going to, Unhappy Campers. So, are you?
I don't think so.
You didn't get tickets.
I could have swore I saw you in the Discord.
We were in the Discord. We're in the Discord. We're in the group.
Still tickets,
we were like,
right? There's definitely still tickets.
I thought they sold out.
They did, and then, like all LARPs, there are dropouts.
So there's
still tickets.
So Unhappy Camp, so this is the one where this like
is the weekend after E1.
Is this like the American like the camp type of?
So it's basically 80s heart. Well, it's 80s inspired, but it's ageless. Summer camp horror LARP. which I'm helping to run, and it's going to be incredible. The lengths that these guys have taken it to, where they are just turning really things that should be really lovely into really spooky stuff. I'm currently like making my costume, and that's taking up all my time. And
so you're crewing, so you'll get all interesting costumes.
Yes. So I'm super excited about that. But
is that
rightly
like the weekend, 29th, 30th of April?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, but before we run out of time, back to the
the point being, because we're doing that, and Ben's really focused on that, and Big Brain Ben is throwing his heart and soul into that game. We're just both kind of like, I'm not sure we've really got time for the Dawnish Herald, so it's kind of an if I finish my costume in the next couple of weeks, maybe we'll throw something together. But we will definitely be back for E2.
Fantastic.
Basically, it's been split into I want to say 2 or 3 papers. I can't remember anymore, which is terrible. This is the worst plug ever of all history, you guys. Yeah. Anyway,
doing great.
Keep going.
Thanks. So we started out just people who really like to write, and we wanted to find a way to bring that into our game. My style of writing is and always has been, so by proxy Saren's is love, relationships, gossip, romance, drama, all of that stuff. So we run an anti-Black Knight column for all of your agony that you need anonymous help with, which has been just great fun, super entertaining. Ben Lord Eamon does a lot more of the kind of breaking down the wins into really, really bite-sized chunks that you can actually understand, which is great for me. I read that to be able to know what's going on in Empire. And our Seneschal, Ireland Foreman, also does kind of a little breakdown of basically what things are worth in the Empire at the minute, which I also carry around with me if ever I need to do any trading. So yeah. If you don't see the Dawnish Herald at the Tolstag camp in E1, you will definitely see it at E2. It's just a fun little paper, and
so for
very Dawnish.
Yeah. So for people who might not be as who don't come to Empire, don't know that, so there's a whole publication game going on at Empire as well. So there's there's several newspapers going on,
several newspapers. I mean there's tons, absolutely tons. And I think there's like a guild of like there's the Printers Guild and everything now. I mean, like that's its own game, being a publisher, which is great.
It's such a cool part of the game. Again, I think this is the first time we've ever even mentioned the publication game. We talked about on the podcast for hours about Empire, and we've not even mentioned that. But that is a big part of the game because it shows up quite.
I mean,
there's
a library. There's a whole library in Anvil. There's just so much game around publications, and they're fun. It's not all serious. A lot of it's just really fun.
Especially your cool little stories. Like one of my stories that I used, it was a High Guard story actually, for my test of metal, and the person I spoke to, the story, in fact, I sat down at their camp and they were telling me this love story, and the love story was in an in-character publication, and they had it framed in the tent. So they literally came out and went, "Oh yeah, here you go." Because they had to go. So funnily enough, I sat down. I had a glass of wine with them. They told me this love story, blah 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 blah, blah, and it was a great love. It was an amazing love story. It got me the High Guard thing, and they went, right, I need to go on a skirmish. And I said, "Oh yeah, well you said about the publication. Is there a copy of the paper?" And they went, "I've got a framed copy." I'm like, "Cool," because then I can write all my notes. I can write down who was involved. And they're like, "Cool. Here's the framed piece of the story." And I'm like, "Cool. Right, I'm off to this skirmish." And they died on that skirmish.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Yeah, which made
so the story that you brought back was like a past life story.
It was made even better because the one of the people that were both people involved in a love story were then dead by the time I told it. So.
And is there any truer love than, you know, true love that dies?
Yeah.
What?
Well, it ends. This is the thing. So
it didn't end. They're in the labyrinth together.
Yes.
It ended.
Wow. It's just so cynical.
Godric's
not like this.
They're reincarnated and then they forget about each other. So.
I mean,
and then they fall in love again. There's no true love.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I've clearly seen the lines between Oliver and Godric. Clearly.
Yeah, that's
Robin and I are both like, we're the same. Our characters are literally just us, but a bit more.
It's me with antlers.
Literally. Sarah is me if I had, and I think if I did have antlers, I would be a bit more of a prick. That's just a fact of life. You can't have antlers and not be a confident person. You have to be quite confident to carry off being a changeling. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Like, but you're just over there like, no, Godric and I are miles apart.
The thing is, but only that's when I was talking about barriers, like earlier.
Godric.
Like doing too many is I think people sometimes they take on too many without realizing it. So if they maybe go, right, I'm going to be this, so I'm, you know, so let's say for example, you know, I'm maybe a shy person, but then I'm gonna play this, like, you know, edge, because that's the cliche, right? There's people do it in D&D all the time. They're like, I'm gonna play the confident edgelord. You know, and that, even though that seems like one thing, that's several things. That you're playing someone who's confident, who doesn't care what people think, which most of us do. You know, someone who doesn't care if they upset people. It's someone who's got it together, someone who's intelligent. That's a lot of things to maybe.
It's very
juggle.
complicated, I think, to play that character that I don't care what anyone thinks.
Yeah,
because I think you end up in a trap where you find yourself quite often having to go, OC, are you okay?
You don't.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, you
otherwise
don't have a good
people
time.
think that you're a real life dick.
Because let's face it, we've all played with people like that do the other side of that. They go, all right, I'm going to play that character, and then at the end of it, they go, oh, I'm not feeling this.
I feel bad. Yeah,
I'm not feeling this D&D
bad.
game. I feel like the party doesn't like me. I'm like, yeah, because
well, of course they don't like you.
You're playing an unlikable person. You know, it's literally what you chose. But yeah, my point is, like, I'm Godric in every sense, apart from, like, I chose the naivety as a thing. Like, so when you had the copy of the Dawnish Herald, like, I enjoy reading. I find reading very easy. I can sight read very well and things like that. And I decided for Godric that he doesn't, like, he's educated. And he can read, but he has no interest in it. Like, he wasn't bothered about school. He was like the school jock equivalent in fantasy or whatever. You know, he was just like, oh yeah, I can read. I had to do the test, so he just like, oh, it's a paper. Oh, words, gross. And then he just saw the pictures and he was like, I can't believe it. And it was obviously the story about Godric failing at E3, and I was like, I can't believe it. I was in a newspaper.
Yes, sweetie, that's all you need to know about that.
That was honestly the best. Just your pure joy. It's like, look, mommy, I'm on TV. The fantasy version of that. And he was just like, I was like, oh, he hasn't read anything I've said about him. Okay, cool. Just absolutely tore you apart, and you're loving it. That's a gossip columnist dream. Really.
Exactly. And I was looking at it, I was like, I can't actually, because I can read fast as well. I'm like, I'm gonna try my best not to, because that's what I mean. That's the part of Godric I've decided to lean into, is like the naivety. So, and the thing is, even though it was a bit of my search for a leaguish love story was a complete failure. And weirdly enough, I had that much of I had a bit of bleed in the fact that I was like, oh, I feel like I failed this summit because I didn't do what I wanted to do, but I did, because everyone loves that story of me going to, because I knew, obviously out of character, I knew knew what the Leaguers were doing to me, and I knew they were saying, right, go talk to the Kikabeo.
Yeah.
I knew what a Kikabeo was, but Godric didn't, and I'm like, oh,
he's like,
okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who are these people? Oh, they just like, they really like to hang around, you know, romantic settings.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll be over there in a second.
Yeah, but it was good. It wasn't the most straightforward role play, because you've got to try and think about it like, right, okay, what's true for Godric? He knows that like true love is a thing, and he has his true love already, so he knows that's a thing. And obviously, when I was in the League, especially talking to Kikabeos and speaking to the Egregore who knew Leaguish culture. Like that was the most challenging thing. I'm going to try and role play it, and I feel like I was giving them good game, because they were having to explain
it. They got to completely dupe you.
They were duping, but at the same time,
it was probably really entertaining for them.
Exactly. I was because I spoke to a Kikabeo that made me speak to a puppet, and the puppet explained. They were like, "Oh, I'll give you a love story, but you have to. The puppet's going to tell you, not me." Right. But I was trying my best not to be like someone who's stubborn. I was trying my best not to be like, oh well, of course there's true. Of course, what do you mean there's no true love? Like I was trying my best to like be that like, oh, I'm trying
bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head around what the Leaguish think of true love, and can I find the true love in what they're saying, you know? And it was interesting, because then when you're like, oh yeah, you know, is that not, you know, is that not true love? Or have you experienced true love? Or, you know, has you know, you explore and you ask about their past and things like that, and why the truth for them as working as a Kikabeo is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
That was...
But that's the Dawnish thing to do.
Yeah.
That's right for a Dawnish character. I don't think that any of us would step into another camp and, you know, I don't imagine as a Dawnish character that I'm naive to what other nations think of us. I'm very aware that they think we just shout glory, and that we believe in true love, and they think we're ridiculous, just like we think they're ridiculous. That's part of the game. So I think that's absolutely the right attitude to have, to go in and be like, right, well, I know true love exists, and that's gospel for me. Like that is true. So you may scoff at the phrase true love and think, oh, it doesn't exist. But realistically, you're going to tell me about a time that something happened to you, and I'm going to see that as true love, because that's what I'm going to see.
So yeah,
the same as they would probably hear, you know, your story, like your Aranel and Godric's story, and be like, well, that, you know, if you go to the Brass Coast, they'll be like, well, that sounds like a contract to me. Like,
well, so
you know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
I would like to get permission from everyone I got love stories from I would like to at least publish it in character. I mean, I would like to speak about them like on the podcast or something like that, or at some point in detail. But what I can say about like my story between the League and the Brass Coast, it was a beautiful story, because those two nations are very much like, they were very. No, there ain't true love. It's all about, you know, contracts and things like that. So when I went to that wedding, I was like, I literally out of character had to be like, you know, I was like, okay, you know, I was there. I experienced the marriage ceremony with the contract and things like that. And I had to be like, right, as Godric, I'm going to have to, because I wrote the letters after the fact. So I did like IC mail to the people involved. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to like break down what I saw and be like, look, you know, there was, you know, when you exchange the rings, you know, there's loyalty, virtue, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, you know, this person tried to sing a song to you and there was a catch in their throat, you know? Yeah. You're not telling me there's no, I saw true love there. So you got to, without telling people there is true love, you got to be like,
But that's what it feels like to I think that's what a spiritual or religious experience feels like, isn't it? You just believe it. And I think that's what we as Dawnish characters are supposed to be like. Yeah. We would go to other nations and see things that they would go, that's not true love. You're being ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But we would just see it because that's what we deeply believe. We believe in glory and love, and we would just see it everywhere. regardless of whether it's actually there. You know, I see someone getting a really good hot dog at the end of the day, and I'm like, oh, that's it.
Well, honestly, but that was literally my game, because I was struggling a little bit. It made the game so much better because I literally had to work at it. I had to work hard to be like, oh yeah, you know, the way your throat, you know, caught when you and the way you looked at each other, you know, or the way. So the High Guard story was actually, it was someone who had passed, but their spirit was in an inanimate object, and they carried this inanimate object around. So I had to I described the way you. The way you hold it, and the way you look at it every time you need to make a decision and things like that. That's love. And I had to dig instead of being because the easy ones were obviously people that were just oh yeah, I've got a story of true love. Yeah, I found this person, I fell in love. They're awesome. They're hot. You know, and we lived happily ever after.
Those were the orcs, weren't they?
Yeah. You know, we lived happily ever after, and that was it. You know, and that. But even though I was I felt out of character. I was oh, I'm struggling. That was the actual challenge of it was trying to find those details, you know. And that's literally, I'm saying this this isn't I have my own opinions on true love, but literally that was just me playing the character, being looking at that one line in the Dawnish brief. We believe in true love. That's it, and I got all that game just from that. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like you can absolutely flesh out things like that. That's, I mean, I think it's lucky, obviously, that true love is such a, is one of those concepts that it's just a little phrase, but we can all make, you know, a universe out of it. But the same thing happens with glory. Glory means something different to everyone. Half of my game is arguing with people about what's glorious and what isn't. And I kind of love that. I love especially that it makes when people it's debate.
Someone from other nations, because that's the thing about we talk, you know, going to other. That was the good thing about that test, going around to other nations, and probably you were here, the Night of Flowers is you go around to other nations and you have misconceptions maybe because you don't know a lot about them. You know, I had big misconceptions about the League, and I was because I knew they might be tricky, and I was whoa, I didn't realize this is what they thought.
Oh, they're actually going to trick me.
I'm they are. Yeah, I had no idea what they were like. But then you hear, you hear other people in other nations, sometimes out of character, be oh yeah, you know, maybe one day I'll roll the character in Dawn, and I'll just be suicidal and go in and just be glory hound, and I'm just
that's
you
not
just think to yourself, and you're oh, that's not Dawn. No, I mean, there's so much more than that. You know,
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I want that glorious death. I want that just glorious ascension. I'm pretty happy for it to come from anywhere, really. I think I could argue anything being glorious at this point. If I've had to fight this hard to off the back of archery, I think I can argue anything at this point.
Yeah.
And the really great thing with archery is that people argue it and then they walk away and you just shoot them. So it's you kind of win a little bit. That's my favorite part of
How many people is Saren shot just out of spite? Nothing to do with the battles.
I'm gonna plead the fifth and not incriminate myself. Although I will tell you a funny one. So E4 last season, I thought it'd be really, really hilarious to do some shooting practice where I was trying to shoot an apple off of someone's head, and nothing went wrong. Don't cover your eyes, it's all fine. But I got really, really excited about it because it was so much fun. I couldn't believe that someone agreed to let me do this, and then I got in trouble because I wasn't checking any of my arrows before I did it, and also you're not supposed to shoot at people's heads, and that just never occurred to me. I just thought, oh, shoot an apple off of someone's head, that sounds great. And I forgot that we were in a real game that has rules, and I can't just do whatever I want all the time. But that getting told off was not fun, but I still got to do it. So
that's the important thing, right?
Yeah, not that I'm advocating for breaking the rules, but it's still really fun.
I mean, technically, if we all meet up like out of character and practice shooting apples off each other's heads,
okay,
that's not against the rules.
Okay, I think we're well over time before this devolves and PD pull us all up.
Should we all? We're just not going to talk about all the things that PD would hate us for.
Yeah,
just not going to organize an orgy or anything like that.
Oh my god! Right, I'm almost not going to thank you for coming, but I am going to thank you for coming on. Right,
you're the best.
Yeah, before we get emails from Matt, we better say goodbye, right?
I'm not, for legal reasons. This is a joke.
Right, say goodbye to the podcast, everyone. See you later.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this show, consider giving us a follow, consider subscribing so you know when a new episode is posted. We have done many other podcast episodes about LARP. If you're interested in those, you can check them out over here. Until the next episode is released, though, we love you and stay safe.